What if I told you that at the peak of the crisis, over 50,000 people were dying each year, including some of Hollywood's biggest stars, while the world stayed silent? From Tim Richmond, the NASCAR star who lived life in the fast lane, to Robert Drivas, the Broadway talent who brought raw emotion to every role. Here are 25 Hollywood stars who died of immunodeficiency virus. 1. Rock Hudson. One of Hollywood's biggest stars in the 1950s, Rock Hudson had the good looks and charm of the perfect leading man, starring in movies like Magnificent Obsession and Giant. But behind the cameras, his life was very different. Born Roy Harold Scherer Jr., he changed his name to Rock Hudson to fit Hollywood's image of a strong, handsome actor. While the world saw a confident star, he hid many personal struggles. In 1984, everything changed. Hudson was diagnosed with a serious illness that many people feared but did not understand. At first, he tried to keep it secret, even traveling to France for treatment. But when he appeared looking weak at a press event with his friend Doris Day, rumors spread. Soon, the world knew the truth. Rock Hudson had immunodeficiency. His diagnosis shocked Hollywood, forcing people to finally pay attention to the disease. Actress Elizabeth Taylor, his close friend, took action, raising money and awareness. On October 2, 1985, Rock Hudson died. His death made the world realize that immunodeficiency was not something that could be ignored. It put pressure on the government to take the crisis seriously. Hudson's last act was not in a movie, but in real life, bringing attention to a disease that many tried to forget. 2. Anthony Perkins. Best known for playing Norman Bates in the horror movie Psycho, Anthony Perkins had already shown promise in films like Friendly Persuasion. But after Psycho, Hollywood only saw him as the creepy outsider, never the romantic hero. Even though he was talented, he was stuck in the shadow of that one role. Outside of movies, Perkins lived a private life. At a time when being different could ruin a career, he kept parts of his life hidden. When he married Barry Berenson in the 1970s, it surprised many people, but it didn't change his past. In the 1980s, a deadly illness spread through Hollywood. Many suffered in silence, including Perkins. But unlike Rock Hudson, he never told the public about his diagnosis. On September 12, 1992, Anthony Perkins passed away. Only after his death did people learn that he had died of immunodeficiency. His final message, shared after he was gone, spoke about the shame that still surrounded the disease. He had played a character haunted by secrets, and in real life, he had kept his own until the very end. But was the world finally ready to listen? 3. Brad Davis. Burned bright but faded too soon, Brad Davis was born in Florida, had a rough childhood, but fought his way into acting. His big break came in Midnight Express, where his performance as Billy Hayes amazed audiences. The role made him famous, but Hollywood struggled to see him beyond that. Davis was intense, rebellious, and refused to follow the rule. The industry turned away from him. In the 1980s, as immunodeficiency spread through Hollywood, Davis was one of its victims. Unlike Rock Hudson, he couldn't afford to reveal his illness. The stigma was too great. If people knew, he could lose his career, his dignity, and his income. So he kept it a secret, working when he could, fighting for roles while his health declined. On September 8, 1991, Brad Davis made his final decision. Instead of suffering as his body failed, he took control and ended his life. His death sparked a conversation about not just immunodeficiency, but the right to die with dignity. Hollywood had failed him in life. Would it finally listen after his death? 4. Robert Reed. To millions, he was the perfect TV dad. Kind, wise, always ready with advice. Robert Reed became famous as Mike Brady on The Brady Bunch. But behind the happy family image, his real life was filled with struggles and secrets. Reed was serious about acting. He trained at London's Royal Academy of Dramatic Art and built a strong career before joining The Brady Bunch. The show made him a household name, but he wasn't happy with it. The simple storylines frustrated him. He wanted more depth, more realism, but producers didn't listen. Still, he stayed, forming real friendships with his young co-stars, even if he never felt comfortable in the role. There was another battle he fought in silence. Hollywood in the 1960s and 70s was not a place where an actor could be openly gay. Reed knew that coming out could ruin his career, so he kept it secret. This silence continued when he was diagnosed with immunodeficiency virus in the late 1980s. He never spoke about it publicly and kept working, even as his health declined. In 1992, Reed died at 59. The official cause was colon cancer, but the truth was more complicated. Immunodeficiency had weakened his body, speeding up his decline. Unlike Rock Hudson, Reed never became a public figure in the fight against the disease. His death was another reminder of Hollywood's silence, a silence that cost many their dignity and their lives. 5. Denholm Elliott. An actor who could make people laugh or feel deep emotions, Denholm Elliott played the quirky museum curator in Indiana Jones, the sneaky businessman in Trading Places, and the classy gentleman in A Room with a View. He had a special way of making every role feel real. But behind his success, he carried a painful secret. Born in London in the 1920s, Elliott's early life was shaped by war. During World War II, he was captured and became a prisoner. When he finally returned home, he turned to acting. Starting in theater, he later moved to movies, where he became one of Britain's most well-loved actors. His talent made him a part of many famous films, and he never stopped delivering powerful performances. In the late 1980s, Elliott's life took a tragic turn. He was diagnosed with immunodeficiency virus. He chose to keep working as long as he could, refusing to let his illness define him. Even as his health got worse, he continued acting until his body could no longer keep up. On a fall day in 1992, Denholm Elliott passed away at 70 years old. The official cause was tuberculosis, but complications from his illness had left him too weak to survive. His death was part of a larger tragedy, as many others in the entertainment world were also lost to the disease. Still, Elliott left behind a legacy of great performances and a quiet lesson about courage. 6. Howard Ashman. Many of Disney's most loved movies became classics because of their music. Songs that make people laugh, cry, and dream were often written by Howard Ashman. He gave Ariel her longing, Lumiere his charm, and Genie his playful spirit. While his lyrics filled the world with joy, Ashman himself was fighting a battle few knew about. Ashman loved telling stories from a young age. He started in musical theater with Little Shop of Horrors, but his biggest success came at Disney. Working with composer Alan Menken, he wrote unforgettable songs for The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and Aladdin. His lyrics helped bring Disney animation back to life at a time when the company was struggling. But as his career soared, his health declined. In the late 1980s, he was diagnosed with immunodeficiency. Even as he became weaker, he kept writing, working on Aladdin from his hospital bed. His co-workers knew he was sick, but few understood how serious it was. In the spring of 1991, just months before Beauty and the Beast made history as the first animated film nominated for Best Picture, Ashman passed away at just 40 years old. His name appeared in the credits with a touching message. To our friend, Howard, who gave a mermaid her voice and a beast his soul. 7. Michael Jeter. Michael Jeter was a man who could make people laugh and cry in the same moment. Born in Tennessee in the 1950s, he started his career on Broadway, where his performances were full of energy and emotion. His talent stood out, earning him a Tony Award, one of theater's biggest honors. Hollywood soon called, and he made the jump to film. Jeter's small frame and expressive face made him perfect for playing unique characters. He starred in movies like The Fisher King, Patch Adams, and Jurassic Park 3, always bringing something special to his roles. But it was his performance as Edward Delacroix in The Green Mile that people remember most. He played a kind-hearted prisoner, and his heartbreaking story left a deep impact on audiences. He wasn't just a movie star. He also became famous for playing Mr. Noodle on Sesame Street, bringing joy to children everywhere. But behind the smiles, he carried a heavy burden. In the early 1990s, he was diagnosed with immunodeficiency virus, a disease that scared many people at the time. Instead of hiding, Jeter chose to speak openly about his illness helping others understand it better. In 2003, Jeter passed away at the age of 50. While epilepsy was listed as the cause, his struggle with immunodeficiency virus had taken its toll. His death was a great loss, but his performances and courage left a lasting mark. Though he is gone, his light still shines in the stories he told and the laughter he brought to so many. 8. Tom Fogerty. Helping shape the sound of rock and roll in the 1960s, Tom Fogerty was the rhythm guitarist for Creedence Clearwater Revival, playing a key role in creating hits like Bad Moon Rising, Proud Mary, and Fortunate Son. Born in California in the 1940s, he and his younger brother John grew up playing music and dreaming of success. For a time, that dream became real. CCR ruled the charts, their swamp rock style defining a generation. But behind the music, tension grew. Tom and John clashed over creative control, and in 1971, at the peak of the band's fame, Tom decided to leave. He wanted to make his own music, but his solo career never reached the same heights as CCR. Still, he kept playing and recording, trying to carve his own path. Then, in the late 1980s, a routine medical procedure changed everything. During a blood transfusion, Tom was unknowingly exposed to immunodeficiency virus. At the time, blood testing was not as advanced, and he, like many others, became infected without realizing it. By the time doctors discovered the truth, it was too late. Tom Fogerty passed away in 1990 at just 48 years old. The man who had helped define 1960s rock was gone, and his story had one final heartbreak. His relationship with John never fully healed. 9. Amanda Blake. The saloon doors swung open, and there she was, Miss Kitty Russell, fierce and confident. For nearly 20 years, Amanda Blake played this unforgettable role on Gunsmoke, the longest-running Western show of its time. At a time when Hollywood often sidelined women, she played a character who stood strong. Miss Kitty was more than a bartender. She was tough, smart, and independent. But Blake was more than an actress. She loved animals and worked to protect them, co-founding groups to help wildlife. She had a special love for big cats and fought for their conservation. Even as she helped others, she faced her own struggle. In 1989, Amanda Blake became sick. At first, people thought it was cancer, since she had been a longtime smoker. But after she passed away at 60, the real cause became known: complications from immunodeficiency. The news shocked many. She was one of the first big TV stars linked to the disease, changing how people saw it. Blake's death was more than a Hollywood loss. It was a wake-up call. At a time when fear and misinformation surrounded the illness, her story helped raise awareness. But she was more than her diagnosis. She was a fighter, a trailblazer, and a woman who never backed down. 11. Rick Avels. A comedian and actor who rose from the tough streets of New York to Hollywood, Rick Avels started his career in stand-up comedy, using real-life struggles to make people laugh. In the 1970s, he became known in the entertainment world, landing a job as a host that helped him reach a wider audience. But while he made others laugh, he faced personal battles that cast a shadow over his success. Hollywood noticed his talent, and in the early 1990s, he played a villain in a hit movie that became a classic. His chilling performance left a lasting impact, making him unforgettable to audiences. After that, he took on more roles, acting alongside some of the biggest stars. Despite his success, he struggled behind the scenes. Avels faced challenges that took a toll on his health. As time passed, he appeared in fewer roles, and a serious illness took over his life. Back then, people didn't talk openly about it, and he kept his pain to himself. In the mid-1990s, he passed away, leaving behind a career that could have been much greater. 12. Dak Rambo. A charming and talented actor who became a television star, Dak Rambo moved from westerns in the 1960s to glamorous dramas in the 1980s, becoming a familiar face in millions of homes. Born in California, he and his twin brother were discovered at a young age, setting them on the path to fame. But tragedy struck early. His twin brother died in an accident, leaving Dak to pursue acting alone. With his striking looks and natural charm, he quickly became a favorite in television. He starred in soap operas and action-packed dramas, playing confident and mysterious characters. Audiences loved him, and producers wanted him in their shows, but behind his Hollywood image, he carried a heavy secret. The industry expected perfection, leaving no room for honesty. In the early 1990s, his life changed when he received a life-altering diagnosis. Instead of staying silent, he made a brave decision. He spoke publicly about his condition. At a time when people feared discussing it, he stepped forward. He used his fame to educate others, challenge stereotypes, and encourage open conversations. 13. Paul Shenar. With a deep voice and intense stare that made him perfect for playing powerful and dangerous characters, Paul Shenar was born in Milwaukee in 1936 and loved acting from a young age. He worked hard to become a great performer and joined the American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco. There, he helped make it one of the top places to study drama. Although he was well known in theater, it was Hollywood that made him famous. His most memorable role was playing Alejandro Sosa in the 1983 crime movie Scarface. Unlike Tony Montana, who was wild and reckless, Sosa was cold, calm, and terrifying. Shenar's performance made him one of the most unforgettable villains in movie history. Besides Scarface, Shenar acted in many TV shows and films, including Dynasty, Matlock, and Miami Vice. But his time was short. In the late 1980s, he was diagnosed with immunodeficiency. Even as his health got worse, he kept working. He passed away on October 11, 1989, at the age of 53. 14. Peter Allen. A larger-than-life performer who wowed audiences with his energy and charm, Peter Allen was born in Australia in 1944 and started as part of the Allen brothers. His big break came when Judy Garland discovered him. He later married her daughter, Liza Minnelli, though their marriage ended in 1974. Still, his career kept soaring. Allen's concerts were full of excitement, mixing Broadway style with pop music. He was also a talented songwriter. He co-wrote Arthur's theme Best That You Can Do, which won an Academy Award. His songs became hits for other singers, like Olivia Newton-John's I Honestly Love You and Melissa Manchester Don't Cry Out Loud. But no one performed them with the same passion as Allen. Behind the bright lights, he faced a tough battle. In the late 1980s, he was diagnosed with immunodeficiency, but kept it private. He continued to perform as long as he could, refusing to let the illness stop him. On June 18, 1992, he passed away at 48. 15. Tom Villard. A face people recognized, even if they didn't always know his name, Tom Villard was born in Hawaii in 1953 and had a warmth that made him perfect for TV. He made people laugh in shows like The Golden Girls, Taxi, and The Love Boat. But he wasn't just funny. He could act in serious roles, too. In movies like One Crazy Summer and My Girl, he showed he was more than just a comedian. Hollywood in the 1980s wasn't easy for actors who lived openly, but Villard refused to hide. In 1992, he was diagnosed with immunodeficiency virus. Instead of keeping quiet, he spoke out. Many people feared the stigma, but he used his voice to educate others and fight for change. 2 years later, on November 14, 1994, Villard passed away at 40. But he did more than act. He made a difference. He helped change how people saw the disease and broke barriers in Hollywood. Even though he's gone, his bravery still inspires others. 16. Herb Ritz, a photographer like no other, Herb Ritz didn't just take pictures. He captured the spirit of an era. Born in Los Angeles in the early 1950s, he first studied economics, but fate had other plans. A simple photo shoot with a young Richard Gere changed everything. Those pictures, raw and powerful, caught the attention of top fashion and media leaders, launching his career. Ritz became famous for his black and white portraits. He photographed Hollywood's biggest stars, from Madonna and Cindy Crawford to Michael Jackson and Elizabeth Taylor. His work appeared on magazine covers, fashion ads, and even music videos. His unique style made photography into art, leaving a lasting mark on pop culture. But behind the fame, Ritz fought a private battle. He was diagnosed with immunodeficiency virus, but never spoke publicly about it. Instead, he kept working, pouring his energy into his craft. Even as his health declined, his art stayed strong. On December 26, 2002, he passed away from pneumonia, a complication of his illness. 17. Merritt Butrick. Some stars shine for only a short time, but their impact lasts forever. Merritt Butrick was one of those stars. Born in Florida in the late 1950s, he had a natural talent for acting. His big break came in the early 1980s when he played Johnny Slash in the TV show Square Pegs. But fans remember him best as David Marcus, Captain Kirk's son in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. His performance added emotion and depth to the film, making his character's fate in Star Trek III even more heartbreaking. Outside of Star Trek, Butrick worked hard to build his career. He appeared in popular TV shows like Hill Street Blues and Miami Vice. His talent was clear, and his energy on screen was unforgettable. But behind the scenes, he faced struggles. The fast pace of Hollywood and personal challenges weighed on him. In the late 1980s, he was diagnosed with an immunodeficiency virus, but he kept it private. 18. Anthony Hamilton. His journey took him far from his birthplace in England, as Anthony Hamilton was born in the early 1950s, adopted by an Australian family, and grew up on a farm. Life under the hot sun shaped him, but his striking looks and strong presence led him to a different path: modeling. He became a top model, working for brands like Giorgio Armani and Valentino, appearing in famous magazines. But he wanted more. In the late 1970s, Hollywood took notice. By the 1980s, he landed action roles, including a major part in the reboot of Mission Impossible. With his sharp features and natural charm, he fit the role of an action star. Some even believed he could be the next James Bond, but Hollywood in that era had strict, unspoken rules. Being openly gay meant fewer chances and lost roles. Then came an even tougher battle. In the early 1990s, Hamilton was diagnosed with immunodeficiency virus. He kept it a secret as his health declined. The industry that once welcomed him slowly faded from his life. On a quiet morning in March 1995, he passed away at just 42 years old. 19. Steven Stucker. A one-of-a-kind comedian, full of energy and quick wit, Steven Stucker became famous for playing Johnny, the wild air traffic controller in Airplane, and its sequel. His humor was fast, unpredictable, and completely unique. Born in the late 1940s in Iowa, Stucker loved performing from a young age. He developed a bold, rule-breaking comedy style that stood out in underground comedy clubs. Before his biggest role, he acted in offbeat films, proving his sharp comedic instincts. In Airplane, Stucker took a small role and turned it into something unforgettable. He ignored the script, adding his own jokes and reactions that caught everyone off guard. His character became one of the funniest parts of the movie. But while audiences loved him, Hollywood was not as welcoming. He was often typecast, and being openly gay at a time when the industry was not accepting made things even harder for him. Then, illness struck. In the 1980s, when immunodeficiency was misunderstood and feared, Stucker made a brave choice. He spoke out. He was one of the first public figures to share his diagnosis, refusing to stay silent. He used his voice to spread awareness when many ignored the crisis. In 1986, at just 38 years old, he passed away. But his humor, courage, and unforgettable presence remain. 20. Larry Kert. His voice made Broadway history, as Larry Kert was born in the early 1930s in Los Angeles and found his passion on stage. When he was cast as Tony in West Side Story, he became a star. His emotional, powerful singing helped make the musical a classic. The songs he performed became timeless, securing his place in Broadway legend. But success wasn't always easy. When West Side Story was turned into a movie, Kert lost his role. Hollywood didn't see him as a leading man, but Broadway did. He continued to shine in theater, proving his incredible talent. One of his biggest achievements came when he took over the lead role in Company. His performance was so powerful that he became the first replacement actor ever nominated for a Tony Award. As the 1980s arrived, so did a terrible illness. Kert, once known for his strong voice, grew weaker. He kept his struggles private and performed as long as he could. But in the summer of 1991, at age 60, he passed away. His voice, captured in recordings of West Side Story, still lives on, a reminder of his incredible gift to the world. Another star, taken too soon. 21. Cyril Collard. Never one to follow the rules, Cyril Collard was a filmmaker, writer, and actor who used his work to challenge people and show the truth. Born in Paris in the late 1950s, he first studied engineering, but realized he wanted to tell stories instead. His work was raw and personal, showing life as it really was, without filters. His most famous work was Les Nuits Fauves Savage Nights, a film that was part story, part confession. It followed a man living recklessly, caught between love, desire, and a deadly illness. It wasn't just a movie. It was Collard's reality. It showed the fear, anger, and heartbreak of living with immunodeficiency virus in a way no film had before. People were shocked by its honesty. When the César Awards came, it won 4, including Best Film. But Collard never saw the victory. 22. Tom McBride. A model and actor who stood out in both fashion and Hollywood, Tom McBride was born in the early 1950s in West Virginia and first gained attention as a male model. With his strong features and confidence, he became the face of many famous ads. But he wanted more. Acting called to him, and by the 1980s, he was ready to move from magazine covers to movies. His most famous role came in Friday the 13th Part 2. He played Mark, a camp counselor in a wheelchair, whose shocking death became one of the most memorable scenes in the franchise. Though his role was short, he left a lasting impact. He later appeared in TV shows, working steadily in entertainment. But life had a darker script in store. In the late 1980s, McBride was diagnosed with immunodeficiency virus. At a time when people feared the disease and little was understood, he made a brave choice to speak out. His journey was featured in Life and Death on the A-List, a documentary that showed the reality of the crisis. He refused to be just another name lost to the illness. He used his voice to bring awareness to a disease that had already taken too many lives. On a September day in 1995, McBride's fight ended. He was only 42. Many remember him for the horror film that made him famous, but his true legacy was in his courage to speak the truth. His battle helped break the silence around the illness. 23. Richard Warwick. Born in the 1940s in Kent, England, Richard Warwick loved acting from a young age and worked hard to make it his career. His big break came in the movie If, where he played a student caught in a school rebellion. The film was shocking for its time and made him a symbol of defiance. Acting alongside Malcolm McDowell, Warwick showed his talent in a role that made people notice him. He kept choosing bold roles. In Barry Lyndon, directed by Stanley Kubrick, he played Lord Bullingdon, a man full of anger and resentment. Kubrick was known for being a demanding director, and Warwick rose to the challenge. His quiet, intense performances made him stand out. While movies made him famous, television gave him steady work. He appeared in Doctor Who, The Edwardians, and The Upper Hand, always bringing depth to his characters. 24. Robert Drivas. Born in Chicago in the late 1930s, Robert Drivas knew early on that he wanted to be an actor. He studied at the University of Chicago and later trained in New York at the American Theater Wing. His intense performances made him stand out, and he quickly became a powerful presence on stage. In the 1960s, he took Broadway by storm in plays like The Wall, The Affair, and Mrs. Daly Has a Lover. His sharp eyes and strong voice made him perfect for television, where he starred in crime shows and dramas like The Defenders, Hawaii Five-0, and Gunsmoke. He had a way of playing characters who carried deep emotions, making his roles unforgettable. His biggest movie role was in Cool Hand Luke, where he played Loudmouth Steve, one of Paul Newman's fellow prisoners. The film is a classic, and Drivas' performance showed his ability to bring out raw emotion. Later in his career, he turned to directing, working on shows like The Misadventures of Sheriff Lobo and The Incredible Hulk. 25. Tim Richmond. Not just a race car driver, but a star, Tim Richmond brought excitement and style to NASCAR, making every race feel like a Hollywood show. Born in Ohio in the 1950s, he always dreamed big. He started with open-wheel racing, but NASCAR became his true home. With his wild hair, bold moves, and fearless attitude, he became a fan favorite. He lived fast both on and off the track, reminding many of James Dean. By 1986, Richmond was one of the best. He won 7 races in the NASCAR Cup Series and proved he was among the sport's greatest. But even the fastest drivers can't outrun fate. In 1987, his health started to fail. People whispered rumors, but Richmond said he had a bad case of pneumonia. The truth was far worse. He had an immunodeficiency virus, a condition no one in sports talked about then. Fear and secrecy took over his life. Richmond left racing, with his team giving vague reasons for his absence. When he tried to come back in 1988, NASCAR stopped him. A substance test issue, later revealed to be a misunderstanding about his medicine, ended his return. It was heartbreaking. Racing was all he knew, and now it was slipping away. In August 1989, Richmond's race ended for good. He was only 34. When his family shared the truth about his illness, it shook the sports world. NASCAR and others had to face a reality they had long ignored. His story was later told in ESPN's 30 for 30 film, Tim Richmond, To the Limit, honoring his thrilling but tragic journey.